to you by Penguin.
The Middle Kingdoms, A New History of Central Europe by Martyn Rady. Read by John Curless.
Introduction. Central Europe, the dogmen, and the oak woods of Berehove. The medieval scribes who illustrated manuscripts often added small sketches in the margins of pages, either to tantalize readers or as a relief from their own boredom. They drew winding vines, flowers, farmyard animals, and ordinary people, but they often also included fabulous creatures. These might be unicorns or mermaids, but there were monsters and monstrosities as well. Flame-spewing dragons, mossy wild men, and headless creatures with faces in their chests. A favourite was the dogman, or Kynocephalus, who had a human body but a dog's head. Being social, as humans are, but only able to bark, the dogmen were frequently drawn gesticulating and pointing. The dogmen were an idea taken from classical literature, and they were thought to be real creatures living on the edge of civilization in the same way they occupied the margins of manuscripts. Early Christian scholars debated the balance in dogmen of canine and human qualities, since if they were mainly human, then it followed that they had souls and should be converted. But the dogmen were elusive, always keeping just beyond the reach of missionaries and of the war bands of Christian kings and rulers. Even so, stories kept on coming of what dogmen were doing just over the horizon, murdering priests, feasting on captives, and consorting with long-nailed female warriors, or Amazons. No shaggy dogman was ever captured, but with unbelievers it was best to be on the safe side. One 9th century account tells of how a missionary bishop in what is now Austria denied a place at the table to visiting pagan chieftains, instead laying out bowls on the floor. As the tide of religious conversion advanced eastwards, creating Christian kingdoms out of what had been pagan peoples, the dogmen were shunted out of Europe altogether and made to dwell on the world's edge. The late 13th century world map, Mappa Mundi, in Hereford Cathedral in England, shows a group of dogmen in the Far East being chased from the Garden of Eden by an angel. A second group are portrayed in their subsequent exile, gesturing on a promontory far in the north. They share the margin of the world with cave-dwelling troglodytes, headless men, and the one-legged monopods who sleep on their back in the shade of an overlarge foot. But, as it turned out, the banishment of the dogmen to the remote north would not be permanent. Even by the time the monks of Hereford were drawing their world map, the dogmen had returned to the European mainland in a new and more terrible form. This time, they were for real. Central Europe rests on its western edge against the river Rhine, which joins the North Sea to the Alps. But its eastern boundary has no obvious physical marker. The Carpathian Mountains, which start northeast of Vienna in modern-day Slovakia, curl around Hungary and Transylvania, forming a border in the southeast. But further north, there is just open country. Northern Europe is flat, lying on the great European plain, which reaches more than 3,000 kilometers from the Low Countries to the Ural Mountains in Russia. On its southern flank, the great European plain blends into the steppe land, or, as it was once known, the wild plain that runs through modern-day Ukraine and Central Asia. It was over the wild plain that the dogmen came, bursting out of Central Asia in 1241 and wasting Poland and Hungary. They called themselves Mongols and Tartars, and the second...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?